last week we left with a cliffhanger. Swamiji sent a letter to Akhandananda, who was now determined to achieve his end or to perish in the attempt. Okay, so our next chapter, 11, is famine and relief. To encourage Swami Akhandananda, Swami Vivekananda immediately sent him 150 rupees with which to start the work. Swami Nityananda and Brahmachari Suren were sent to assist him. Suren was a former acquaintance of Swami Akhandananda, who had joined the Math after Swamiji's return from Darjeeling, and whose experience in office work was to be useful in correspondence and accounting. I told you that the Ramakrishna mission is absolutely to the penny or to the pice, I guess, in India, accurate on where every single coin or money goes. So accounting is a very important accomplishment or talent. The Swami now took up the program of work with his two assistants in a systematic way. The first center was opened at a festival hall belonging to the Bhattacharya family of Mahula. Rice was scarce in that area and had to be purchased at a nearby market for a high price. It was planned that rice would be distributed to the needy in rations of 3/4, 1/2, and 1/4 pound to adult, child, and baby, respectively. The rations were measured out by the Swami himself. On the 15th of May, 1897, 18 persons from a neighboring village received the rations. The public undertaking of the Ramakrishna mission in relief work was launched. And this was the first time in the whole history of the order that they started doing this. This became the major work in India. As the news of the new relief center spread, the number of destitute people seeking help began to increase. Swami Akhandananda personally studied the condition of the people in the villages and gave them tokens to procure the rice. The mornings were devoted to distributing the rations, and the afternoons and evenings to touring the villages. Thatched huts, but now with no roofs or lights, and people with no clothing, were familiar sights everywhere. No sooner had Swami Akhandananda, known as Dandi Thakur. Dandi is the staff every sannyasin gets, and they're supposed to never let go of it. Okay, so in our sannyas vows, we don't let go of it for a day and take it down to the ocean, break it, and throw it in the ocean, so we don't have to carry it all the time. That's the only way you can get rid of it. So he was known as Dandi Thakur, staff-carrying holy man. Entered a village, no sooner had Swami Akhandananda entered a village than the destitute inhabitants would swarm around him to tell him of their wants. "What food do you eat here?" the Swami would ask. Some worthless things like boiled arum leaves and the like would be the reply. He would give them tokens and say, "Come to Mahula tomorrow and you will have rice." A fortnight after relief activities were started, Sri Nitya Gopal Mukherjee, secretary of the District Famine Relief Committee, heard about the center and came from Burhanpur to inspect it. He was completely satisfied. A few days later, the district magistrate met Swami Akhandananda at Mahula. He too appreciated the manner in which the relief work was being conducted at the center and asked the Swami in what way the government could help. Swami Akhandananda thought of the able-bodied but starving peasants of Mahula and suggested, if a road joining the main road to Mahula was built, it would be of permanent benefit to the village and work could be provided for many people. This constructive proposal was accepted gladly by the district manager. Rice was becoming ever more scarce. When Swami Akhandananda consulted Mr. Panton, the district judge and president of the Famine Relief Committee, as well as Sri Baikunta Nath Sen, an influential committee member, it was arranged that the committee would supply rice at a cheap rate to the Swami. Swami Akhandananda also became acquainted with Sri Sudhanshu Shekhar Bagchi, a local silk merchant. One day, both met Nichagopal Babu, the secretary of the Relief Committee, who showed sympathy and concern for the needs of the people. The Swami had no money. So Sudhanshu Babu said to the secretary, "Please allow us to take some rice from your stock. Accounts will be settled later on." The rice reached Mahula in time to continue distribution. A day or two later, unexpectedly, an insured letter arrived from a friend in Madras, containing 500 rupees, enabling Swami Akhandananda to promptly pay off the debt. Watching the surprise of Nichagopal Babu, Sudhanshu Babu remarked, "You see how God helps in real, selfless work?" This support of the government in relief work even goes on today. Whenever they have a terrible disaster, huge floods, or something happens, the government actually still supplies the Ramakrishna order with the clothing and food to distribute, because they know that they take not 1 ounce for themselves. It will all get directly to the people. Behind this unexpected help from Madras at such a critical time lay Swami Ramakrishnananda's thought and efforts. He was regularly publishing Swami Akhandananda's letters to him in the English journal Brahmavadan of Madras, and as a result, the famine fund of the Ramakrishna mission began to grow. Within a month, the relief activities included about 50 villages on the eastern bank of the Ganga. When news reached Swami Akhandananda of the deplorable condition of 7 or 8 villages on the western side of the Ganga, he left Brahmachari Suren in charge at Mahula, while he went on a tour of inspection. With a volunteer, he saw 7 villages, including Rangamati and Chiruti, in one day. He dispensed tokens to the needy to get food from the Mahula Relief Center. When he found the people were eating indiscriminately to allay their hunger. While sitting on the ferry ghat opposite Mahula, when returning in the afternoon, he felt some severe earth tremors and began repeating the mantra Om. After the tremors had ceased, signs of devastation were to be seen all around. Swami Akhandananda felt deeply grieved and thought to himself, "Before one calamity is over, another comes. Who can say how many lives have been lost and how many people rendered homeless?" On reaching Mahula, he heard of the horrible condition at Burhanpur. It was the last day of the Muharram festival of the Mohammedans, and he had been invited to witness the celebrations, but instead he sat speechless in his room. A few days before this, he had been receiving letters from his brother monks asking him to return. He had seen the palatial buildings of Calcutta appear as if made of human skulls with mortar of human blood, and the buildings seemed to be saying in derision, "Don't come here," leaving behind thatched village huts lying amidst sacred plowed fields. This prophetic vision seemed to him later to have been a foreboding of the present earthquake. Besides providing the able-bodied with work and the disabled with rice, Nursing the abandoned and the sick was now included in the Swami's work of service. One day after the earthquake, while he was traveling with the village physician, Radha Sundar Das, he noticed a starving boy with distended belly. The blue veins on it were clearly visible, and his feet were swollen. "Look, doctor, how he stands," the Swami said. "Sturdy son of a farmer as he is, he still stands erect." On his return to the relief center, Swami Akhandananda was told that a widow had been there with her ailing son, the same boy that you saw, Dandi Thakur. Said Dr. Radha Sundar, "It is a case of ascites with edema." I don't know what that is. "His daily diet should be barley bread and a pint of milk." Swami Akhandananda paid for the diet, and the doctor supplied the medicine. In 21 days, with fish soup and rice, the boy had begun to improve, and he gradually regained his health. One day, the aged headman of the village went to the Sanyal's house while Swami Akhandananda was present. The elder informed them that a woman of the Bhagdi caste had been stricken with cholera, but he gave no details and presently changed the subject. Swami Akhandananda said, "You have heard it is a case of cholera. The woman lives alone. Will you not do something for her?" "Cholera, sir? What can we do?" replied the elder. At once, Swami Akhandananda called Dr. Radha Sundar, who said, "It is cholera. We neither treat nor attend to such cases." The Swami took a few doses of medicine from the doctor and hastened to the old woman's hut that very night, only to find her in the last stages of the disease. He kept awake through the whole night and nursed her, uttering the name of God in her ear as she breathed her last in the morning. And I remember these boys were probably 28 by now. 28, maybe 30. After a day or two, the news came of another cholera case. This time, the Swami compelled Dr. Radha Sundar to accompany him. The doctor approached the stricken woman's hut with slow and timid steps, repeating the divine names of Radha and Govinda as he did so. His trembling voice made Swami Akhandananda think that the doctor's, not the patient's, last moments had come. For in those days, in the villages, the very name of cholera was as terrifying as death. With the object of rendering whatever service he could, the Swami entered the house to find a heart-rending sight. The family had fled, leaving the patient to die alone. Such was the state of the villages of Bengal at the close of the 19th century. And Swami Akhandananda was determined to check this awful degeneration of society. The extremely hot summer, unwholesome food, and impure water were the chief causes for the spread of cholera in the famine-stricken villages at this time. As soon as he heard of a new case of cholera, Swami Akhandananda would go to the victim's bedside to nurse him. He chose the medicines with utmost care, had the patient's bed cleaned, and did whatever else was needed. In most cases, the Swami's selection of medicines was successful. Besides these things, he took preventive measures. With the help of the village watchman, he would burn incense and sulfur in the villages. He had holes dug far from each house for the patient's excreta, instructed the villagers to keep the tank for drinking water uncontaminated, and suggested they drink only boiled water with camphor added to it. That would be really awful. These measures and Swami Akhandananda's manner of service encouraged the villagers to eliminate this disease to a great extent and to throw off their foolish dread of it. Swami Akhandananda was feeding hundreds of hungry mouths at the relief center and fighting day after day a ceaseless battle with poverty and pestilence when a letter from Swamiji in Almora, written on June 15th, 1897, arrived. As I receive the detailed news from you, my joy increases. With work of this kind, one can buy the world. Bravo. 1,000 embraces and blessings to you. Work, 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 even unto death. The weak have to become stalwarts, heroes. If by giving food to a hungry mouth, you happen to lose name and fame, you are so fortunate, so very fortunate. It is the heart that conquers, not the brain. Books, learning, yoga, dhyana, jnana, none of them can compare with love. It is love that brings the yogic powers like that of anuma, bhakti, jnana, and mukti. This is the real worship, the worship of the Lord in men and women of flesh and blood. All else is nidam yadidam upasat. That verily is Brahman, not what people here worship in the Kenya Upanishad. This is just the beginning. With such a beginning, can we not go on spreading all over India and the world? Let people see whether by the touch of our Lord's feet godliness is attained or not. This is salvation, free while living on earth, when all sense of I, all selfishness has vanished. Bravo, my hero. Victory to the Guru. Go on expanding slowly. In time, there will be a permanent center in every district. Soon I shall be going down to the plains. Swami Akhandananda read Swamiji's inspiring letter over and over again. A feeling of great strength moved his heart. Dedicating himself wholly to the welfare of mankind and remaining absorbed day and night in ceaseless activity, he began to catch a glimpse of the dawning of a wonderful new epoch. Some devoted families of Mahula took good care of Swami Akhandananda, but there were people who were jealous of him, bitterly criticizing his acts of service among the villagers. They tried to create a schism. Swami Akhandananda's only recourse in such cases was to pray to the Master, saying, Lord, save me, grant me peace of mind, let no fault-finding enter my mind. In the actions and reactions of work, the natural composure of his mind would, at times, be disturbed. He would write about it to Swamiji, who in reply would advise him not to hold anyone at fault on the strength of only verbal report. Actually, this is really good advice for everyone, because we all run into troubles in our everyday life. And if we can remember, Lord, save me, grant me the peace of mind, let no fault-finding enter my mind. Practically the same thing Holy Mother said. The famine relief had been in operation now for a month, but no arrangements for cooking had been made at the relief center. Both Swami Akhandananda and his assistant took their meals by turns at the house of one family or another in the village. Very near the center lived an old Brahmin widow who loved to feed Swami Akhandananda. As he arrived in Mahula soon after her son's death, she looked upon him as her own son and took good care of him. Swami Akhandananda would call her mother, which comforted her bereaved heart. While occupied in relief work and in nursing patients in the villages, no regularity in meals could be observed. It was only the motherly care of this lady that enabled Swami to continue his relief activities over a long time in good health. Hard-pressed as he was, he would snatch time from his various activities to take a meal at her place. On some afternoons when there was leisure, Swami Akhandananda would take his workers to join in choral singing in her yard. This would create a joyful spiritual atmosphere in which worldly things were forgotten for the time being. The district judge, Mr. Panton, also appreciated the Swami's work and helped him in many ways, as did the district magistrate, Mr. Levinch. One day they both visited the relief center and were surprised and delighted to see how these devoted workers performed regardless of personal comfort. After 3 months of relief work at Mohula, the need for more funds was growing. Swami Brahmananda wrote to Swami Akhandananda, "Send weekly reports to the press and appeal directly to the people. Those who do get this get assistance. How can you remove the want otherwise?" Swami Akhandananda at once sat down to write an impressive report for publication. As he started to do this, tears rolled down on the writing paper before him. He made a second attempt, but the master came before his mind's eye and said to him, "Do you want me or the public? You are to send a report to the press, not for me, but for the public. If you want the public, you are to send regular reports to the press. Now choose between the two." These words came from deep within his soul, and tears overwhelmed him. The report was left unwritten. However, his letters to the Maat were published in the Basumati of Calcutta, and renderings of them appeared in the English journal Brahmavadan of Madras. Later, the Swami wrote a thought-provoking article, Famine and Its Remedy, which the Basumati published under the caption, Sunya Bharata, Empty India. In the meantime, on the basis of reports from their officials, the government had decided to end all relief operations by the beginning of August. The accounts of the relief committee were closed, and orders came for the refund of the surplus of 5,000 rupees to the Central Relief Fund. Now, this was way back in the day, so you know how much 5,000 rupees would be. Swami Akhandananda accepted an invitation to a lawyer's house in Jangipur for a few days, and while there he heard of the extreme distress of the people of Navagram. He at once set out for Berhampur to report to the Secretary of Relief Committee. The officer's only response was of regret, saying, "Swamiji, nothing more can be done now." The Swami next went to the office of the landlord of Panchgaon. Immediately on his arrival, 300 famished people, men and women, came to him to report their distress. 2 of them fainted from weakness while there. The local government officer was to have made an inquiry, but instead he had sent a report of the 2 previous months, which did not reveal the true picture of the people's desperate condition. Swami Akhandananda sent his own report of the situation to the magistrate. Though distribution of rice was continuing at Mohula, Brahmachari Suren was sent to hold an inquiry at Navagram and to send a report that would reach Swami Akhandananda by the time a meeting of the district board was held. The deputy magistrate's report had just been read at the meeting of the board when this latest report from Navagram reached Swami Akhandananda. The magistrate and members of the board were very appreciative of his adroit action and zeal. They unanimously resolved to hand over immediately 250 rupees for the continuation of the relief work. Thus, a new center was started in Panchgaon on the Kandi subdivision. Distribution of rice at Mohula was stopped for the present, for each one at the center would receive a dhoti, a wearing cloth. From the Ulambazar Mat, a few hundred dhotis, new and used, were sent. Some of the new dhotis were collected by Sudhanshu Bagchi of Berhampur. On the day of distributions, hundreds of men and women were given a cloth each after a hearty meal. The European managers of the indigo and silk factories nearby, with many of the elite of the district, attended the function, while Mr. Levin distributed the dhotis to the needy. Swami Trigunatitananda, present as a representative of the Ulambazar Mat, offered thanks to Mr. Levinj. Mr. Levinj gave his presidential address saying, "It is to Swami Akhandananda that I am indebted for the relief of the famine-stricken in the Murshidabad district. He has rendered me much help, and so ably has he managed it, I have had no trouble in the proper utilization of government relief funds." Now, Swami Trigunatitananda was the one who came to San Francisco and was there until he was killed. Swami Akhandananda was aware that the distribution of rice rations at Mahula would have to be continued until the next rice crop was ready. Very soon, 8 or 10 disabled persons came praying for help, and a list of the most severely disabled was drawn up. Now the relief was being given at 2 centers. The scarcity of funds began to be felt, and directions came from the Mat not to take on any new recipients. But this was a hard injunction in such a situation. In this helpless state, the Swami prayed to the Master, "Lord, it is you who have put me into this field of work. If your work goes unfinished, it is your will." Having made this prayer, he felt somewhat easier in mind. The next day, a letter arrived from Madras from Swami Ramakrishna, saying that a gentleman had remitted 1,000 rupees for relief work. The following day, word came that the same gentleman was sending a further 500 as a second installment. Meanwhile, Swami Brahmananda asked Swami Akhandananda to go on with the work at Mahula as usual. Such encouraging news gave the Swami fresh energy, and he began to work with redoubled vigor. Following these events, the relief work never again suffered from funds. Centers were opened at different places in the district, and hundreds of destitute people received help until the end of the year. Now we're going to stop there, and the next we're going to have the orphanage and its foundation. This is one of the major things that Swami Akhandananda founded, was the orphanage. So he's expanding the work of the Ramakrishna Mission. First it's disaster relief. Now it's taking care of children. And it has expanded to hospitals, schools, universities. What do they call it when they help the villagers learn how to do a trade and how to make certain things, and they offer them outlets for it, like sewing, and get them started in their own businesses. And that is a major part of the work in the Mat work, the mission work in India. Any questions about anything we've read today? Comments? John?
I was curious, the Swami in San Francisco, was that a bombing? What happened to him?
Yeah, I mean, he's an inspiration for everyone. He really is. He's also, as I say, the one who walked the length of India to the Himalayas. Yeah. I think it was barefoot. I'm pretty sure it was barefoot. And Swami Sarvagatananda, whose new book came out, that being spiritual, staying practical, he was Swami Akhandananda's disciple and also walked the length of India. His book is very inspiring to read. It's not something you can sit down and just read, though. You kind of pick it up, read a little, remember it for the day or the week and then read a little more. Okay, Friday we will.
Donga has a question.
Okay.
When I just looked the story up and they said that the building, it's a beautiful building. I had no idea that that was the Vedanta temple, the one where the fellow was in San Francisco. What an amazing structure.
Yeah. Gunga, you had a question?
Yes, I was wondering, I know that a lot of the missions relief work is definitely focused in India and it's necessary there, but I was wondering if we had ever attempted any kind of like hunger or homelessness relief work here.
I'm sorry, I missed part of that.
No, that's okay.
No.
I was wondering if we had in the past attempted any kind of homelessness or hunger relief work in the United States.
Yeah, we do. We've been taking part at a homeless shelter for the last 35 or 37 years. It's run by the churches in Santa Barbara. It's called Transition House. And it's was started by the Methodist, the Episcopal, and the Presbyterian churches here in town when they found families sleeping in their cars in the winter. As I say, 35 years ago. So I think it was a Methodist church, wasn't it? Methodist church opened up their parish hall and put cots in it and invited everyone to come in and sleep there. Now, the city was not too pleased with this because they weren't zoned for it. And you know what zoning is. So it took them 1 month to get the paperwork done to stop it. At the end of that month, the Episcopal Church opened their parish hall, and everyone moved over to the Episcopal Church. When that month was up, they moved to the Presbyterian Church. When that month was up, they moved back to the Methodist Church, and they round-robined for about a year and a half. Then they called all the other churches and said, the city gave a building to be used for this. And they called all the churches and said, if we each take one night, all volunteer, feed everyone, make lunches for the next day, and stay the night, then we can continue. So that's been going on now for, 35 or 37 years. And our devotees and our nuns are still doing it. First Wednesday of every month. That's our night.
That's so amazing. I didn't even know. That's so awesome.
Yeah, no. And in Washington, D.C., before COVID, Annadananda had started a free clinic. He had two doctors who volunteered to come to the center. But once again, licensing and zoning and COVID became a problem. But yeah, the Pittsburgh Center, though they are not official, we're taking food to, what's the name of that? Ronald McDonald Building, which they were feeding families of cancer patients. The families who come and were getting free treatment at the hospital in Pittsburgh. People are doing all kinds of things. Not,
A number of our centers have soup kitchens, A number of our centers work in soup kitchens.
yeah, and as Vajrapana said, a number of the centers do their volunteer in a soup kitchen. So
the Austin Center takes food down to the homeless too.
Austin Center, yeah.
Yeah, I think once a month, and they do it as a kids program.
Yeah.
They fix the lunches, and then an adult takes it down.
Mm-hmm. So yes, the centers are doing it, but they're not doing it. They're doing it like most of the centers, quietly and without saying too much. Yeah.
And if I could put in a plug for anybody who wants to send money to India, I'm on the board of ASTI, America's Service to India, and our website, I think it has a link if you ever want to send money to any of the the work in India, and also the Ramakrishna Foundation has that.
It's against the Vedanta Society of Southern California's bylaws to redirect donations out of the country. So we formed ASTI and the Ramakrishna Foundation, which were, devotees formed it.
Yeah.
And it was specifically because there were a couple of really bad disasters in India in the 70s. 78, there was a huge flood in Calcutta that covered most of West Bengal and East Bengal. And people were anxious to send money to relieve the situation, but we couldn't send it through so we started an organization specifically for sending aid to India.
Yeah. But not through us, yes.
Not through the Vedanta Society. So, I didn't know you were on the board, Sunanda.
I am. There's not many of us. I'm the president.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay, any other questions? The lecture Sunday will be Swami Arupeshananda from Pinion Hills, and his title is January Jonesing. He always comes up with titles that I have to think about. What is he going to talk about? We'll have a gospel reading on Saturday at 5. So I hope all of you can join us. Okay? We'll end. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Good to see you all.